This is Rugby Unity. I am David Pembroke and Ewen McKenzie. It's probably a good thing that Eddie Jones is not with us this morning as he heads his way to Georgia. He had steam coming out of his ears after the yellow card that was given to Harry Hockings late in the Japan-Wales game. We'll come to that, but pretty soon after the match, you sent around to Eddie Jones and myself your ongoing analysis of yellow cards. So take us through what you are finding when yellow cards are issued in international rugby matches at the moment.
Well, I don't like to beat the old drum and bang on about the same things, but it just keeps hitting me in the face every time I'm watching. There's a lot of games on the weekend, and it was there in every game. And what I did was I started to look at I went to the World Rugby website and look at their match report, and they have a little timeline. So it shows the yellow card, it shows what happens after the yellow card, and all you see, and I screenshot I think 4 games and sent it to Eddie and Pemby and said, look, every time there's a yellow card, the opposition scores. It happened again this morning. Argentina playing Scotland. Scotland get a yellow card. Argentina scored twice. It changed the game. Argentina ends up winning. Yeah, they were down 21-0 down, and they came right back and win the game. Like it's having a massive impact on the results, and it's not just one yellow card a game. It's 3, 2, 3. You know, in the Japan game, there's 3, I think. It's having a big impact on how much time you've got to play. The only team that's getting through this is South Africa. They've played through 2 red cards. Yeah, and you can talk about full red and whether it should have been reviewed, but they played through 2 red cards and got through in the last 2 weeks. Other than that, everyone else is getting hammered. You know, so it is really. And so I just go to the timeline now. That's my first point of review. I read the timeline to get the perspective of the match and how much it's driven by the refereeing or what happens in the game. Now, the referees will say, oh, we can only referee what we see, but I'm just saying it can't keep going like this. I just don't think that the game is being determined by the game. I think it's being determined by officiating and a focus on a thing that's important but needs to be determined in a different way.
Well, I've got some solutions from the third voice, and it's certainly a point that is exercising people's attention. And I wouldn't quite yet put it at the crisis stage, but I certainly think that we're heading down that path, that if it is that yellow cards continue to play such a key role in determining the contest, that could potentially have an impact on the appeal. Now, I'll come to the solutions that we've had from the third voice, but what are your thoughts about how indeed the game can be kept safe, because that's an absolute priority and players have to be kept safe as best as possible, but at the same time, I don't know, this morning that the Argentinian fullback got 10 minutes in the bin for a deliberate knockdown, but it wasn't a deliberate knockdown.
It was completely instinct. It wasn't even instinctive. It just sort of happened, and it was so quick, and it wasn't cynical. It wasn't cynical at all. It just happened, and then
his hand was under the ball, and he was trying to put it up and grab it. And a couple of weeks ago, we saw Suoliti do it. And race away.
It's impulsive. Like you do it, because you're trying to intercept the ball. Like it's not a slapping action. So for me, it's quite distinct. And for me, that should have just been, knock on maybe. But it's to be yellow card. I just think, and the complexion of the game's changing too much. Teams are capitalising on these moments too easily, and so it is a 7-pointer in the game this morning. 14-point. Turnaround on a yellow card. You get suddenly the other team's got 14 points in the same period. And the fatigue, if you look just after the period, after the 10-minute period, there's a fatigue element too. So often there's another try somewhere just lurking after where you've actually tapped the team out because they've had to scurry around and cover for the man short. So short of the team closing the game down, walking to things and slowing it down, which is not what we want from the spectacle, I personally think we've got to keep the players on the field, and you've got to do something like other sports do. You've got to accrue penalties in the background at that level, So if you're a test player, you accrue yellow cards at that level, and then you don't play. You just don't play. Like if you get 2 or 3 or whatever it is, you don't play. Yeah, so if you've got a tackling technique problem or something like that, you use your shoulders, don't use your arms. We've seen players doing this. Then you pay for it. You're not eligible for selection at that level, right? So you can't wipe out your penalty with a club game somewhere else or something. It's done at the level that you incur the yellow card. So if you're a test player, you can't play. And that's it. And maybe it's even more. And then you can even have a hearing and say, well, it should be you can't play for 2 games or whatever it is, depending on the nature of those yellow cards, whether they're just inadvertent or whether they're cynical or foul play. You can still have a hearing about that, but you deal with it after the game.
Yeah. Well, we've got a couple of solutions here. At Philip Barrich, keep the straight red for obvious things. Keep the 20 minutes for foul play, head contact, tip tackles, but ditch the yellow and swap it for a 15 to 20 metre advance, which can only take you as close as the 5-yard limit. And so it affects you for 1 play and not for 10 minutes. So the penalty is it's like in the AFL where they give a 50-metre penalty down the field. And so the penalty is kept on the field rather than taking a player off the field. What about that?
Yeah, that's got merit, especially for these knock-on type things, especially the ones that aren't cynical. There's a cynical element that I believe you can spot. The ones that are just reflex and whatever, okay, maybe that's a solution there, a 15-metre additional territory penalty, and then you can still take your kick for touch or whatever it is. So it's a significant penalty, but it's dealt with there and then. I think that's got far more merit than this off-the-field stuff where you've got numerical disadvantage. You're penalising the whole team. You're penalising the whole team, and you're penalising the fans. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but Johan Potgieter makes the point: rugby is a team sport, so yes, the individual must be punished, but it also must cost the team.
Yeah, well, it's definitely doing that at the moment. There's no question about that. But I agree I agree to some extent, but I don't think that's the way forward because there's a lot of money and there's a lot of other things at stake, and I just don't think that you can deprive the fan base for a moment of not even stupidity, just a moment that happens on the field that's poorly judged or whatever, as opposed to something that's calculated. And we can troll right back 30, 40 years, and we know who the villains were back in the day, and we saw things that happened. And they were obvious back then. So we know what the villain type play is. We're talking about these marginal things that they're ruling them as it's a major penalty for something that I think is just an instinctive action on the field and or poor judgment. So you can deal with that after. I think you can deal with it after the game, plead your case, whatever. And if you're a serial offender, it will certainly show up. And so if you're doing serial things on the field, then you're going to miss games. I think that's a better penalty than missing 10 minutes. It's better to be missing test matches. That's far more. It's a bigger penalty, but it's only penalising the individual, right? Other than another guy gets an opportunity, misses match payments, whatever it is. It's a big sanction. But it has to be at the same level. You can't wipe it out with some crappy club game or something like that.
Yeah. Now, and I do apologise for missing in my transcription here. I've missed the name of the third voice contributor who said, well, instead of giving out yellow and red cards, give out points on the scoreboard. So every penalty is a point, deliberate foul is 2 points, dangerous play is 3 points, plus you still get the penalty kick. So that may take care of some teams' discipline. So the first solution was territory. This solution is now the scoreboard. So again, you're keeping the players on the field.
Yeah, I think
you are.
I'm hearing it. I don't want the fans to have to take an abacus to the game to sort of keep tally of what's going on. I think there's merit. I think the thing is, people are thinking about it. I'm sitting there thinking about it myself in my spare moments, going, "What can we do better?" I think, I don't think we want to give the referees more control over the scoreboard. You know what I mean? So if we're doing that, then that really they're influencing the scoreboard. They're the ones that are controlling the scoreboard. I don't like that idea. I think the players have to do it. I even made a note the game's changed, okay? I mean, I'm sure if we went back 30 years, the majority of tries are scored by backs, I would think. It's just off the top of my head. Now, I saw the French second rower scored again. They said he's the leading try scoring forward for France now. He scored 17 tries. All the hookers are, recipients of the driven maul tries, so they're all high in the try scoring list. It's a different game now. So the forwards, and we saw that in the Scotland game this morning. We saw some magnificent tries by Scotland in the first half. Ewan Ashman's my newest best player. He's got the best name, but Ashman, he was like the Ashman was. I was thinking the Ashman's on fire, like he's on fire, like he was. He ran.
Oh, he was great, wasn't he?
Tries, his running lines and the flatness of his running, like magnificent. Like so, the forwards are now equal, if not getting more tries than they're making more line breaks at the moment. It appears to me. So someone can do the statistics, but I think it's a different game now. So we have to do something about we want these guys scoring. We want to see the blokes making the breaks. I don't care who it is. We want to see that. We don't want to just see people, a depleted team, getting punished. So for something that didn't need to be that or could have been sorted out off the field. So I think there's a big distinction between foul play and misadventure versus a poor decision on the field. And I think you can deal with a poor decision on the field after the game because there was no malice in it. There's no malice. But things with malice, okay, I get it. There's got to make a call,
But let's just finish on the red cards because we had Tyg Byrne the other week red carded against the All Blacks in Chicago. Lud de Jager last week red carded, and then Franco Mostert on the weekend against Italy. Red carded, and they're the ones that really have kicked Eddie Jones off. He can't see that they are red card penalties, and I was a little. I think against the way the game is being refereed, against the letter of the law, perhaps you do get there, but I do think in terms of what it's doing to, I don't know, the behaviour of players, because I think Mostert on the weekend, did everything he possibly could to get into the right place. Similar with Harry Hockings, I don't even think he hit the Welsh number 7 in the head. His head ricocheted back, but anyway, getting back to that, because actually I would also commend.
Yeah,
go on.
No, I
just say I would commend to people. Go on, you go.
It's all the tall blokes. The tall blokes. There's three tall guys, right? 3 second rowers are all struggling with basically body height in contact situations. Now, what do? They can't make themselves shorter. So sometimes you just don't get the time to drop your body height when you're a big tall. So there's mitigating circumstance now. So yes, you think about that. You reflect on it and look at it and then make a decision. And rather than sort of making a decision on the spot, you reflect on all that. And I don't think there's enough credit given to that. They just assume that everyone can magically find the right body position in an instant. It just doesn't happen for a big guy. Just know what they're like. Having played with big, tall guys, they're a bit more. They lumber a bit more like that, and the props are the same. They don't change angles real quick. It's just the nature of the players. So. I think that there's, the red cards, they should be examined off the field. But look at Wales, Japan. Wales had a red card, and you got 3 yellow cards for Japan. So you're not even playing. No, they weren't even playing 15 on 15 for most of the game. It was like 14 on 14. So and the same in the South African game, we had red card early, and then 2 more yellow cards later on. The England game had a couple, and they all result with tries. New Zealand got a yellow card. England scores 2 tries. England gets the yellow card. New Zealand comes back with a try. Like it's just there in the timeline. Like it's we got to be talking about it, and we are talking about it, but we need some action. The thing that interested me the most, what was the most expedient action that happened on the weekend by World Rugby? You might have picked it up. was sanctioning England for what they did at the haka. So they were so quick, because England formed a V, they were so quick to sanction England for that. That's World Rugby. They're able to do that in a matter of milliseconds, get that sanction out, but they can't deal with these big issues that are affecting the day-to-day games, things that we're trying to watch and enjoy.
That has missed me. What have they been sanctioned for?
I saw an article because they formed some V shape. Now, maybe it's say it's the way they address the haka. So I suppose that's controversial. I don't know.
I haven't seen that.
Disrespectful. Well, I saw an article. So maybe anyway, but that was talking about World Rugby responding to the England's formation against the haka, because they're always worried about disrespect and things like that. I don't quite get it, but anyway, that was the fastest they moved all weekend, was World Rugby on that topic. But on other things, glacial speed on other stuff,
Yeah. No, and look, we can get into, the communication of World Rugby around issues like the refereeing, and when you do look at other leagues around the world, they move far faster and far more decisively to address these issues. And this has gone on for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and we are still no closer to better communication, for people to better understand what it is that they're trying to do, for them to evaluate transparently what they think they're doing and why they're doing it. Like when they rescind the red card against Ty Burn, okay, well, what's the consequence of that? Where's the accountability for that? Yep. And where's the explanation of that, such that we're in a position to better know where we are, for the coming weekend's matches?
That's all of that's 100% right. I would say, and that will come out. That will come out at some point. They'll put up a PowerPoint somewhere telling us about how many tries are being scored in international rugby. Right? They'll tell us all that. I go, yeah, but that 50% of those tries are being scored when you got 15 on 14. Like, that's what's happening. Like, it's not even. It's not like you're playing 15 on 15. You can't boast about that when you're taking people off the field and suddenly the other team is scoring tries. Like, you go, oh, okay, well, that's a surprise. You won't see that in there. There'll be no footnote about that. It'll just be, we're getting, eight tries per game or something like that on average. And you go, yeah, okay, well, 4 of them were the numbers were mismatched.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and actually, I would commend to people, and I know lots of our listeners would listen to the Egg Chasers, which is a YouTube channel and blog run by this commentator, been around for a long time, and very astute. And a very good commentator. And he has done an editorial after the Mostert red card and jumped up very quickly and put it out on air. And it was, I would commend people to, if they've got sort of 10 minutes to go and have a listen to that, because he bells the cat. And it really is the point of, 5 or 6 years ago, World Rugby, safety of players, and they've been trying to find a better and safer way for the game to be played. But Tim makes a very good point that rugby is a contact sport. And when you cross the whitewash to go onto the field, there is an element of danger in every game of rugby, whether it's played at a junior level or a senior level. Anyone playing the game is accepting that that rugby is a contact sport. And of course, there are going to be accidents. There are going to be, and you're just not going to be able to starch out all of the risk of the game. And I think that's where we're at the moment, is anything that looks like it, particularly in a one-on-one contest tackling-wise, they pull it up. But if you look at those forward drives, the pick and drives, 10 metres out, 5 metres out, there's head contact everywhere. And 100%. If you stopped it and said, okay, well, let's have a look now in slow motion, whose head, as that player took it, as the defender's getting lower, the attacker's getting lower, the forwards are going at each other, there's contact every time. So we have to find a way through this, because it is going to get to a World Cup. It is going to get, and Tim makes this very, very good point. If it gets to a quarterfinal, a semi-final, or a final, and all of a sudden you've had, the biggest matches of the cycle decided by rugby accidents. And that's what's coming. That's what's coming if we don't fix this.
That is what's coming. And you've got to think, if you think about it, right, everyone's trying to avoid So we saw that controversy with the videotape for Australia a couple of weeks ago. Wilson was fingered for cleaning out the side. All of these are responses to people trying to not get in a position where they might make a mistake with their shoulder contact or whatever. So they're cleaning out on the edges of the ruck, which is not ideal. But there's also a lowness and I picked it up I was thinking about it in the Australia game, is that the technical approach of the breakdown, the body height is very low now. You're not getting penalised for going off your feet very rarely. So players are smashing in, but they're low to avoid contact. And so we end up with this situation where all these players are lying on the ground. They're not in the game. I think Australia actually runs out of players because they're actually in such a low, good body position at the breakdown that they can't get back in the game quickly because of possibly lateral fears about making inadvertent contact that's going to end up putting them in the bin. And we saw that. We saw that Frost went off later in the game. He came on and a bench player, enthusiastic, whatever. And, anyway, it's a bit frustrating at the moment. And I think all I say is I agree with what you were just saying about the commentator saying it is a contact sport. There's no way that UFC or boxing or something like that, you can go out there, but you're not allowed to touch anyone's head. That just wouldn't survive. Like, it's not going to happen. Like, you've got to accept the fact that there's going to be some circumstances, and it is managed. We're already managing it with head contact, HOA and things like that, and we've got lots of videos and people watching.
And the mouth guards and the other things. It's good.
We're managing. So we are managing a lot of stuff anyway, and we're also managing that any foul play is getting picked up. So that is happening, but it needs to be examined in the right circumstance, not under the pressure of everyone looking, watching the TMR and whatever. They're all fumbling away, gibbering away, trying to sort of talk in code to each other so that they end up with the right conclusion. I think the World Rugby needs to take the pressure off the referees a little bit, because it seems to me, it's not even seems to me, at every game we've got at least 2-3 yellow cards, and now we're getting this plethora of red cards, which we hadn't seen for a while. Now they're all popping up too.
Yeah.
So,
and look, this idea that you stay quiet and you don't say anything, World Rugby, doesn't cut it in this day and age. You've got to open up. You have to communicate.
Yeah.
That might have worked in 1970. It's not going to work now, I can tell you.
It doesn't even work for the royal family anymore, does it? The Queen got away with it, but King Charles doesn't get away with that anymore. Not with recent circumstances. So no, silence doesn't work. No.
Doesn't work. So, and the thing is, everyone's coming at it from the right place. Everyone wants the game to be better. At Rugby Unity, our stated mission is to help secure the future prosperity of rugby union around the world. And we know that the game is our jewel. It's our gem. And there's some great rugby played at the weekend. But this is too big an issue for us not to talk about. But we have just spent the first 24 minutes of this podcast talking about it. We'll draw a line under it there, but World Rugby, tell us what's happening. Tell us what you're doing to fix it. Tell us your thinking patterns. Do something. Let us know what's going on, because this is, and they're probably hoping that they're going to get to the end of November and then just go, let's go quiet and not talk about it. But I'm sorry, we're going to keep smoking it out because we know you're listening. And please, it's coming from the right place. We're all in this together. The whole global rugby community is in this together. So let's see if we can open up the lines of communication. And thank you very much to the Third Voice. And there are lots of other suggestions in the comments all around the web about how we can fix this issue. So let's keep talking about it. But please, let's talk about the rugby because there was some great contests over the weekend, and we spoke about breakthrough games on the weekend, and we really targeted our discussion around England and the All Blacks and Ewen McKenzie. I think the prediction we made was pretty right, and we saw England really, I thought, very impressive, well led by George Ford, very smart, his game management, and then being able to really, bring home late in the game, really put the pressure on the All Blacks and win decisively by 33 points to 19, and a breakthrough win for England at Twickenham.
Yeah, look, it was like most of the games. One team got out of the blocks, and then the other team hauled them back in and went on to win. That happened in a couple of the games Yeah, Ford ran the game well. The drop goal is back. I was going to say that. Suddenly, everyone must have been watching because he kicks two, and then we saw in two other games we saw another. I'm thinking it's back. It's the drop goal's back. Like that's all it took someone to kick one, and everyone go, oh, that's a good idea. Like things get forgotten. So, I think we had 4 drop goals that I counted. There was probably another one somewhere. So that's good because it breaks up the sort of tactical approach to the game. It's not just about forwards just bludgeoning away. That happens at times. But now New Zealand, we preface the fact that they're on the rise. They're probably well advanced in their player depth, and we're seeing that. We're seeing the punch, the benefit of the bench, how good they are. There was a couple of changes. Like Ford was running the good shows. Marcus Smith came in early because it was an HIA, so that gave him a bit of X factor there. But they were good in the air. They've got big wingers, tall wingers. They've got good aerial ability to be able to get the ball back.
Yeah,
but, they were good. Their counter rucking was good. So all the fundamentals were, the scrum was a good contest. The line-out wasn't so good early for England, but on the whole, they did pretty well. I think there's a confidence there, and I think that comes from just winning consistently. You get into a groove. I've been there in teams like that before, and you get into things just start to happen. And there's clearly the squad mentality is very good. So they're in a good space. They're really good. This next game will be interesting. But, they did a good job, and I'm not quite sure what to make of New Zealand. I've talked about this a few times. It looked to me like some of the teams in World Rugby at the moment they play much closer to the line with their forwards. So on phase play, they're playing and they're able to get to the advantage line. What I feel was New Zealand just always seemed to be a little bit deeper, and also this is not even go at Roy Guard, but a longer pass, so the forwards are positioned further off the ruck and deeper. So the pass time it takes from the 9 to the forward, whichever forward it is allowing good line speed to just suck up that space. I always feel like New Zealand's always going backwards. Not so much early in the game, but later in the game when everyone gets a little bit tired. The England line speed was very good in defence, and I thought New Zealand struggled to make the advantage line, and therefore they're always playing on the back foot all the time. So it was a bit of hit and hope. So, England look good. They're in really good space for the World Cup time, and their timing is really good. They've got really good depth, and they're shuffling players around a little bit, but it's still a core group that's doing the business and a really good sort of impact. So they've borrowed from the Springboks there. They've got a really good bench coming into the game. It'll make a difference.
You talk about confidence, and so anyway, congratulations to England on that. That's great, and good to see that squad coming together and playing as they are. And if they have been sanctioned in any way for the V against the, I reckon that's fake news. That's got to be fake.
You got to be keen to write an article about that, because I'm thinking,
that's fake news.
V shape. Look, I mean, when you play the All Blacks, right? Everyone has these ideas about the haka. For me, it never. Look, it was interesting, but not. Didn't like. I wasn't so worried about the haka. Well, that wasn't the game. The game was always the game for me. The haka was like pre-game entertainment. So you watch it, and then you get on with the game. So, but everyone had this sort of.
It was, but the V was a recreation of something we did in 2019 ahead of the semi-final.
That's what I'm saying. Nothing. That's what I'm saying. We had. There was periods when Campo went and stood down to the goalpost. So there's all sorts of things that happened. Teams have done different things and marched. And I thought you weren't allowed to march over halfway. I thought that was sort of like the basic rule.
And
you're not. I don't know. I'm not sure what the V. I'm not sure what the V has to do. But anyway,
the V back in just quickly on that. Back in 2019, in 2018, I tried to convince Eddie to do it at Twickenham, and he said no. But in 2019, after a week of creating as much havoc as we could, because it was after the way the All Blacks had played against Ireland, that we had to upset them. We had to do something to try to get them to think about something else during the whole week. And Yeah, and so we went at them all week. It was a lot of fun. We had a strategy. Good Eddie and Bad Eddie. So bad Eddie came out in the semi-final. But the original idea that I had was that we would stand with Owen Farrell, that iconic, top of the pyramid. But then we were going to actually march forward over halfway, and by the end of the haka, we were going to have them circled.
Right.
And if you have a look at it, Joe Marler starts walking. And Billy Vunipola, they start walking, but then the referees say, get back, get back. And I was watching it thinking, what's going on here? But then I heard after the game, you're not allowed to go over halfway. But anyway,
No,
so the circle never happened. I would love to have seen the circle.
I've seen V's, I've seen arrowheads. Like, it's all about, if you stand like just behind each other, you can make it look more intimidating because it's a bigger block. You don't want to have gaps. There's all sorts of theories, and I've been involved with teams. Everyone tried something. For me, it was just like, okay, let's get on with the game. I want to play the game. So anyway, that was
good to see England doing well.
Exactly,
because
right.
we do need, we do need, and it's great to see this England team moving forward and playing as well as they are, and playing with such a great. It's great rugby. Yeah, exactly.
They're playing well.
And off the field, I've got to say as well, we're seeing a lot of personality, and there's this great TikTok that Finn Smith, Pollock, Tommy Freeman, and Freddie Stewart. Congratulations to the England boys for doing that as well, because it's, the Red Roses, really set a great standard through the Women's World Cup about this personality-based content. And it's great to see the England boys getting in behind it. And it's great to see sort of people wrapping around it and bringing them forward. So good to see. Well done, England. Congratulations on that win. But you talk about confidence. The Australians, I think that is the big missing piece at the moment, is that there is a lack of confidence in the Australian team, beaten well by Ireland, 46 points to 19.
Yeah, well, I was worried with Frost not starting, because Frost has clearly been the line-out organiser. And I think that that's no disrespect to the other guys, but I think there's always, in every Wallabies team, there's always been a passionate line-out man, and it's sort of been handed down as you go along. It's not always the person you think. It was a Rod McCall, then you had Dave Giffen, and then Justin Harrison took over. So you had these sort of guys that come through and they take control and they manage the tactical side and the calling on the field. So Australia lose 5 line-outs in the first half, without that specific leadership, and the line-outs are game within the game. So then you're struggling for possession, and I think the possession ended up being 68% to Ireland in the end, So if you're turning over first phase ball and then we couldn't catch a cold, that's another that was another problem too. We just couldn't we didn't have we didn't seem to have the enthusiasm or the I don't know, there was something missing there.
To me, it was the authority. There wasn't this whole idea of I'm going towards like dreadful conditions, wet, and Prendergast has got a very neat kick on him, and he can get lots of elevation, as can Jamison Gibson Park. They can get it up.
Yeah, they've got the spiral bomb going, all of that. But yes, the conditions weren't great, but Ireland's handling, especially in the first 20 minutes, was terrific. Their ball handling was terrific. So you can't blame the conditions in that sense. It's there, but they didn't worry them. Counter-rucking was good, but we didn't again, and I'm starting to look at this across all the teams. I'm seeing all the teams taking their points, but Australia, for me, is the only team that doesn't take its points, particularly in the first half. And I think we didn't take points 3 times, I think. We go for the side. That's sort of a legacy of Super Rugby, I feel. It's been that way the whole year, and it worked for us, but it's not working for us now. We've got to build a scoreboard. You have to have respect for the opposition. You've got to try and build something. You can't do it. You can't just rely on getting 7 points every time. That's a nice way to do it, but it hasn't been. There's been no evidence that that's been a consistent way for us to score in the last 6 or 7 tests. So you got to accrue your points and respect the opposition. So I think that's not hasn't been so good. Ireland sort of dropped off a bit, and Australia scrambles well. They have done all year. They do scramble well, and so they denied opportunities. But Ireland took a drop goal too, and they took that on that penalty advantage. So There was the kick chase urgency. I was watching guys off the deck, and when I was talking before about the clean out, we've got this focus on being very accurate and aggressive at the breakdown, but we end up, a lot of players end up off on their feet, and so they're not in the game in the immediate play after. They're not so much in the game to chase kicks or to get back if it's the opposition. So. There's a bit there. I mean, Hansen scored 3 tries. Look, 2 of them were I thought, was that a replay? It was just the same try. He scored on the post.
Yeah.
So he was terrific, but he was terrific under the high ball, and he was a gamble at fullback. He's a winger. He played a fullback. We had Jorgensen fullback. Hansen caught everything. Jorgensen didn't catch anything. Like a sort of, So it was. So
how do you fix it? How do you fix it though? How do you fix it?
Well, we're in the land of people that jump up in the air and catch balls. We're in the whole country that does that. There's got to be people. Mick Byrne. We had Mick Byrne come in one of the Brumbies. We had him come in. We were doing some of that sort of catching practice. You just got to get people. For me, it's not complicated. I watch Toole and some of these guys, and I think there's some technical flaws. If you approach it front on and you don't catch it as a knock on, you've got to lead with the shoulder. So if you do drop it, it tends to fall back on your side. So it's not a knock on. You've got a chance of someone else with you gathering the ball. So that's not complicated, but you've just got to get up. You've got to time your run, and you've got to attack the ball from a couple of steps away. You can't just stand there. And so it's better to have a late, and so you put yourself up in the air, and then you're protected by the laws of the game. So I think you've got to practice it. You see AFL practicing the big pads. The rugby league do it as well. There's plenty of people that do that for a living. So it shouldn't be a weakness. But it's there. The other thing which Ireland did really well was they off phase was just those lateral cross field kicks. The 9 and 10 did it a bunch of times, scored tries off them each time. They just knew that the Australian defence was sucked in and they were defending, from a certain point on the field. So there's that lateral width. They held the width of the field. They had a guy on each wing, and they just had that as a bailout option. Cross kick, bang, score unmarked, And they did it 2 or 3 times, So Ireland were good tactically, and we were struggling just to get possession.
We're not talking rugby, we're building it. Rugby Unity.
So where to for Australia? When you look at a team like we've just discussed, England, really everything is looking good for them. They've got a lovely balance, lovely mix of players, nice depth. Whereas Australia at the moment, where do you see them on their journey of development? Perhaps, contrasting them with, perhaps England. Well, it was clearly well behind South Africa, New Zealand, Ireland. Where are we? 2 years out from the World Cup, where are we?
Well, I think as the coach, Joe's already said, we've blooded a lot of players over the last 12 months. But a lot of the coaches prior, we all blooded players. I mean, I was down to the 7th hooker, I think, when I was there. You got to, sometimes you have to do it through injury, but lots of players have been tried. But I still maintain confusion about this. I can't tell you who the best players are in the current coaching group's mind, because there's been sort of players rotated. I mentioned the other day about, Pollard seemed to be going well to me, and suddenly Fessler was in there, and then he played 2 tests and he's out, and Pollard come on the field, scores a try within 2 minutes. He's that sort of guy. I don't know what when the Lions struggled early, so I don't know why I don't know why that changed, because it had been going well, but we don't see all the detail. We don't see the training, so it's hard to make specific comments. But there's been a lot of movement of players, and I don't know that the players would know where they all sit. I think that's the downside of their chopping and changing. You have to change, obviously, because injury. That's a given. But the question is, how many other changes do you make to maintain the confidence of the group, and that people aren't playing for their lives or playing for, they're playing because they want to develop the cohesion in the team versus versus not knowing whether they're going to be in the team or not, regardless if they play well. The best period for us this year, I think, was coming off Ellis Park. I think we picked the same team pretty much, barring injury, for 2 or 3 tests in a row, and that was probably a bit of a purple patch. Coming off Lions, Ellis Park, I think from memory, we had a pretty settled team for a couple of weeks. Then we lost Wright and lost a couple of players, and then so it's all got a bit ropey after that. And then we had all the changes against Japan that almost backfired, and so it's all sort of been a bit of catch up. So, and we sort of went on the tour prefacing the fact that everyone's fatigued. So we sort of had that bailout concept that everyone's tired. You don't want to give players an excuse. So you're not tired. You don't want to tell them that. They should just be fizzing out there to play. So I don't know. It's got a little bit lost now. Now we'll be we'll see what they pick for this week.
Yeah, big weekend.
The other bits is you've had O'Connor in and out, and he came back and he wasn't used, and then someone else came back, and then Swain came over, and then he went back without. It's hard to know what's going on in that sense. I don't know what the players think because they're on holidays and they're called up, and then other players are somewhere else. I saw somewhere that Donaldson's in Vietnam on a holiday. He seems to have been forgotten. So I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, big challenge ahead this week for the Wallabies when they take on France in Paris. But before that match at the weekend, Australia-Ireland, I got up early enough to watch Japan-Wales, and 12 months' time, a more mature Japan team ices that match earlier, and it's not even close. And I understand Eddie's frustration with Harry Hockings, but really, Japan should have beaten Wales at the weekend, in my view. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought something similar. I think that Japan's we were hoping that was going to be his breakthrough game, but that didn't happen, and it could have so easily happened. So, if anything, watching Japan in the recent weeks, it's just the thing that they've got. The last bit of the piece for them is just that the ability to convert the pressure. They're doing a lot of good stuff to get themselves in position, and it's just converting that pressure into points. That'll come with.
There was that late line out, wasn't there? That late line out with about, I think, probably 7 or 8 minutes to go. They were 5 metres out from the Wales line, and they just, they botched it. They got the take at the top, brought it down, knock on, and that gave Wales the opportunity to get out.
Yeah, we've seen that before. We saw it in the A game too. Like it happens. Like they kept going, and they lost 3 lineouts in the Japanese A game. So it's about having the smarts and picking the right options around that, and not making assumptions, but just being able to convert that field position, and that because they got the talent. There's some really good players there that are pretty sharp, and so they're on the right trend. You could see after Wales were visibly the guys they were interviewing after the game were quite. There was no mistake. That was a tough game. That was a tough game for them. So for lots of reasons. If they'd have lost, it was turn out the lights in Cardiff. They were the heat that they were having. I think it was just a generally tough game because they're a tricky side, Japan. I think they they did well against Australia. So they're just going to keep plugging away. But you're hoping there's some reward for them there. Yeah, maybe a draw might have been better, but in the end. These yellow cards and red, they have an influence on the game. It did then, I think.
Well, certainly, for Japan to be able to beat Wales in Cardiff, that would have been, a red letter day for Japanese rugby. That would have one of the top, 5 moments in their history, I'm sure. Winning against a tier 1 nation in Europe. That's the next thing. And I think, part of Eddie's frustration was it was so close. Because, again, as a coach, as you were saying before, careers get decided sometimes by results. Well, by results generally, but sometimes, there is an occasion where you get it or you don't get it. And if you don't get it, it's like, see you later.
You hope they're looking at the method, and I think the method's been pretty effective, and I think Eddie will have more resources at his disposal in the next 2 years. I'm sure there's a few more players he's got up his sleeve, and he'll become available and whatever. So I think that there'll be depth might be an issue, but I think that they'll have a good game. They'll challenge anyone on their day, and the more they can play against.
No, it's good for the game.
Yeah,
I think it's great, and it's great. Yeah. It's great that we are looking at them in this period of, okay, what are they going to do this weekend? And obviously they're off to, and Eddie's not with us today because he actually is on his way to Tbilisi as we speak. South Africa 32, Italy 14. The Italians again, obviously playing, for most of the game against 14, but they're your boys, Ewan, and they played pretty well, particularly in the first half, the Italians.
Yeah, they did. I mean, the red card changed it, but there was opportunity there. The drop goal sort of kept South Africa in it. I mean, it wasn't much. That the scrum was good from Italy early. It wasn't so good in the second half. It wasn't much in it. Really. South Africa got a pick-and-go try, so it's 10-3 at half-time. I thought the referee sort of handled the tackle contest pretty well, but in the end, South Africa just, with their bench coming into the game, Quagga Smith coming in, he's got a few turnovers, and there was, yellow card. It wasn't much in it, really. I mean, they got the win. They got a scrum wheel, and then they scored off that. The halfback scored, and then Hooker scored at the end, So there were 2 tries at the end, bit of a rush at the end, really, to inflate the scoreboard. But it was a genuine contest. I was kind of hoping for a bit better from Italy, especially with the red card, that they didn't sort of make the most of that opportunity. But South Africa, good enough to be able to get through that, and they had good guys coming into the game, which helped.
France 34, Fiji 21. I didn't see that game. Were you able to catch any of that? Any of the highlights at all?
Look, I watched it. It was one of these games, 21-0, and then it's 21-21. And then France just got away at the end with a try, and basically, Ramos's boot. I wrote that down. I've written it down before. He's such a good goal kicker that other teams are missing opportunities and missing wins because they're not taking the conversions and things like that. Ramos doesn't miss. So in the end, France were productive enough to get there, but they wouldn't be happy. They got off to a bright start, 21-0, and then Fiji pegged them back. So they got through them a few times, as Fiji can do. And so that was it. It wasn't much else. So they won't be happy, France, and Fiji won't be happy either. But it was a contest. It's 2 halves.
Well, I tell you who's not happy are the Scottish fans. They booed the Scotland team off the field. Another team that got to a 21 points to nil lead over Argentina, but the Argentinians way too good. Coming home with a wet sail, big contribution from their bench. Final score, 33 points to 24. And the heat is well and truly on Gregor Townsend. I watched about half an hour of it today. And, I was very, very surprised. Apart from our man at number 2 for the Scottish who scored those 2 brilliant tries, distressing to lose from a 21 points to nil up.
They had a plan, and Argentina are good tacklers, but they did really well in the first half. Scotland, they scored 3 tries. It was Dempsey and Ashman twice. They were just hitting. I think Argentina were waiting for the play to the backs. They just hitting flat forwards who made the initial break, and they were fast enough to get through and scored 3 tries like that. And I thought, well, that's pretty good. But then second half, it was Argentina. It was classic Argentina stuff near the line, similar to South Africa. Very hard to handle near the line. They scored, a bunch of tries like that. That came on the back of yellow card situation, and Argentina got a couple of tries, and then they got one late, and that was that. So it wasn't sort of basically it was 21-0. Then Argentina scores 34-3 for the next period of the game. So it's just 2 different games going on there. So Argentina are good. They can roll up the sleeves if they have to. They've got the flashy backs if they need them. They didn't really use them. They used more of the forward power to get there in the end. But they scored 3 tries, I think, in the last 10 minutes. So, or last 12 minutes. So, you got to be there for 80, as they say. So I don't know what Scotland will be thinking, that 21-0 or 24, they got 24 points and Argentina just went straight past them.
So, but you've coached a lot over, at different levels, and I'm sure this has happened to you at some point. As a coach, what do you say when your team's given up a 21 points to 0 lead in an international match in front of a full house of your, very proud, very motivated fans who have come to watch and to enjoy the contest, but they see a result like that? What do you as a coach say?
Well, it depends on it depends. And sometimes it's hard to say anything other than say we weren't good enough for 80 minutes. You give it the old, it's an 80-minute game. You can't play for 70. You got to play for 80, which is definitely the situation for Scotland. You have to play more than 60 minutes. You got to wind it back and go, okay, Argentina's, what are they good at? They're good at the pick and drive, and they got to those positions pretty easily. They even took a tap kick at one point. So they just kept it in the forwards. And so you had to avoid those situations. You had to keep the play somewhere else on the field, further up the field, and you had to stop them from getting the stuff that they like. And it's the same with South Africa. You've got to try and make them play in areas of the field that they don't want to play and not let them play where they're good at doing it. And Argentina got what they wanted in the end. It took a long time, but Scotland were doing well. I don't know why I don't know what happened. Argentina probably adapted at half time a little bit. There was a bit of that. But, sometimes it happens in the game. But if you look at across the weekend, there's a bunch of scorelines. The France game was the same, 21 points. The team got out. New Zealand got out 12-0. That's what happens in some games, and that's where the cards sometimes make a difference. And I'll say in the Scotland-Argentina game, Argentina scored 2 tries when Scotland were under yellow. So that does make a difference, That's 14 points, especially when you've got a good goal kicker.
So there you go. So that was the top-tier matches played, and I'll come to the results of the other matches that we spoke about and do speak about every week, because we do have an interest in all of the matches that are being played across at the international level. But just back to the third voice for a couple of comments. Jacques says, geez, we're lucky to have so many outstanding experts on almost every rugby podcast. And at Luthando says, what a great pod, always very informative and great rugby minds. And a question from James Mackay to you, from LinkedIn. He says, the old saying for the Southern Hemisphere teams in November is that they often have one eye on the beach. With that in mind, how did you go about managing end-of-season tours? How did you manage morale when things went wrong?
Yeah, I know about the beach. I haven't heard that about the beach, but it is that when you're touring, they're long weeks and there's lots of distractions and whatever. So it is problematic, and I had a situation there on the tour at the end of that season where we ended up having to stand down a bunch of players because they weren't following the team rules. That's what happens. So you just got to follow through. Whatever you decide as a group, you've got to decide what's important. So sometimes that you've got to put that ahead of the actual games. But it didn't cost us on the field, but it cost guys opportunities on the field. So you've got to be true to what the reason you're there for. And I do think that the game has moved a lot in the last 10 or 15 years. I think it's far more, and you don't see much drama going on around the edges anymore. I think players are very focused on the tasks and whatever. I think it's a much different environment these days. And it is their job. It is their source of income. It is all of those things. So you've got as an employee or whatever, you've got responsibilities to you and your family and whatever else. So I do think it has moved. I think I came from the period where I came from the amateur era, played 2 years as a professional player, in inverted commas, where you got some money, and then I coached in that era. So I think there was a good 15, 20 years of transition there where players were sort of coming from different environments and whatever, and some still, I had a job Then you went to a period where players didn't have a job, so you didn't have any other influences, so you had spare time. Whereas in my day, when the amateur days, you all had a job, so you didn't have spare time because you went back to your job. So it's different now. I think it's now become far more focused, and so we had a wish-washy 20 years there, I think, but 15 years, but I think it's sort of tightened up a lot these days. So I don't think that's such an issue. Managing off the field, it's just a matter of managing their health and whatever else. But it's managing the mind, really. It's all gets down to selection and stuff like that. That's the key. Everyone wants to play. So the critical moments of the week are all around selections and tactics for me.
So the other results being played across Europe at the weekend. Georgia 28 defeated Canada 17. Portugal 58 defeated Hong Kong China 12. The USA 26, Romania 18. England A 29 defeated Spain 25. And Uruguay 45 defeated the All Blacks 15. Have I got that right? 21, or is it the other way around? Or was that the result?
I don't know.
Was it 45-21?
I don't think so.
I might have that the wrong way around. I could have stuffed up on my transcription there, so don't hold me to that. But that's not the worst thing I've ever done broadcasting.
Well, I don't know if hang on. When was you talking about Uruguay?
Oh, it's the other way around. No, sorry, It was the other way around. So All Blacks 15. It was in France somewhere. 45. Uruguay 21. Hong Kong China. In the women's, it was, I think, 12-0 over Germany. There are 3 matches being played in that series, which is great to see. And Denmark 38 defeated Lithuania 34. And the Czech Republic 48 defeated Sweden 24. And Malta 27. Too good for Eddie Jones's mates coach team, Cyprus 8. So lots of rugby played across Europe at the weekend, and I'm sure lots of fans enjoyed getting involved in that. So just a few bits and bobs from around the world. At the beginning of November, the French Rugby Union signed another 4-year deal to support Rugby Europe and the 34 member nations. So it is involving the development of the women's game, the technical side of the game, the refereeing of the game, and just getting behind that. So, and investing money. So congratulations to the French Federation there for backing rugby across Europe, because there is clearly enormous potential for the game to grow. And as we here at Rugby Unity think about how do we secure the future prosperity of rugby union around the world, there's no doubt that the Tier 3, the Tier 2 and developing the game at that level across Europe is a major priority. Just one other bit of news. Zach Lomax, who would be known to not many of our rugby followers around the world, but a very good rugby league player, was playing for the St George Dragons and then moved off to Parramatta. But he has been released from his contract at Parramatta, and he is one of the players who has been very closely associated with the start of R360, and the statement did say that he has been released for opportunities beyond the NRL. So for mine, someone who's been watching R360, maybe this is the start, this is the first sign that players are going to sign, and there is going to be something happening with R360 at some point. But that certainly caught my eye. Ewen McKenzie, what did you think? Did you see that news? And if you did see that news,
I did see that. I saw that. And I'm disappointed because I'm a Parramatta supporter. So I'm not happy about.
He's a good player.
He's a good player. So
he's a very good player.
My first thought was, geez, I hope some of these blokes don't get stranded in no man's land where there's nothing, and they're walking out of their league contracts and whatever. I mean, I guess they can always pick up something later, I guess, back in league or something. But if it doesn't come to fruition,
no, it's a 10-year ban. If he goes, that's a 10-year ban, according to Peter V'landys.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, then he's going to be he'll be playing rugby somewhere. It might be in 360, but it might be somewhere else. Anyway, he's a good player.
Well,
he's a good goal kicker.
He's a good player.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He'd be a good pickup for the Wallabies if they've maybe that's where he's going to play. Maybe the Wallabies have had a chat with him because he is a very, very good footballer. But so there you go. Well, Ewen McKenzie,
you haven't mentioned the big one, mate. We've got the big game.
What's the big one?
We've got the big one. Samoa, Belgium tomorrow.
Oh, Samoa, Belgium. Yes, indeed. Yes.
Well, Wednesday Australian time. Samoa, Belgium for the qualification. World Cup.
Yeah, that's it. It's the last spot. So, so let's wait and see. We will preview. We won't preview that because that will be well over by the time we get to our preview game at the weekend. But, yes, the World Cup qualifiers in Dubai, that final spot up for grabs. And so can it be the Europeans or can it be the South Pacific Islanders, the Samoans? And I'm sure... it'll be great. Well, I'm sure a very, very good contest. And I did notice that one of the Belgian players had been disciplined by World Rugby. Not sure if he is available, but anyway, that is certainly something to look forward to. And to you, the audience, thank you. And as you know, your voice is crucial in the delivery of Rugby Unity as the third voice on the program. So please keep the comments coming. Keep the comments, the questions, and everything else. It does sort of enrich the conversation. And I do know, speaking to both Ewen and Eddie, they do enjoy hearing from fans from around the world and your views about the game. So please keep those coming. A like, a subscribe, a share, wherever you are consuming the content, wherever you are on the web, whether it's social media, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever, it does all help. It does help us to be found. And last week on TikTok, we had two of TikToks go over 280,000. I think you put it this way, on TikTok I've worked out, you mention Rassie Erasmus and you get a very big response from South Africa.
We need to mention we have to mention Sachin Tendulkar because he'll get all the Indian cricket. So we need to talk about him more often. Yeah.
Well, interestingly, last week I did get to talk to Rahul Bose, who is the president of Rugby India, and that's going to be one of our featured interviews over the summer break here down under. Great conversation, just a fabulous conversation, not only about the Indian Premier League that he started this year, which was a great success, the 7-a-side tournament, but really just understanding about where rugby is in India, how it's played, who it's played by, and where it's played in the country. It's a great conversation, very impressive gentleman, and I really enjoyed that conversation. And I know you too, Rugby Unity listeners, over the break, you will enjoy it as well. So there we go for another program of Rugby Unity. A big thanks to Ewen McKenzie joining us today. Lots to talk about. And thanks to you, all of you, all the audience for coming back once again. We are very grateful for your ongoing support. But please be kind to each other. My name is David Pembroke and it's bye for now.